hope today's program will make you think about your choices when divorce or separation is imminent. The co-authors of the new book, Conscious Coupling, declares many are simply unprepared and often just misunderstanding of the ways and means of their choices. At times, we may not really know what it is in our best interest. Can we fix what may not be broken? Are we even broken at all when inside our world experiencing these emotional breakdowns? A lot to share, and let's see what this book and this couple have to offer. And I have with me Dana Greco and Don DeRoches, the co-authors of the book, Conscious Coupling. Tell me, how'd you get to writing this book?
Well, first we want to say that we're two divorce mediators, as well as a family and couples therapist. And we used to have a radio show, and we compiled everything in our radio show to put in this book. We found that after divorcing couples, there was a lot of
material,
and we had learned a lot from the couples that we worked with.
Yeah, so then we wanted to take that information and get it out to a bigger audience. So then at that point we decided to put the radio show on hold so that we could write the book.
And I've been on your radio show, and that was fun. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
So you are divorce mediators, and you know, in the writ you gave me here about the dissolving marriages, you know, I don't know if that's our purpose or not. But it does end up being that way, and I understand why you said that. It does.
And the reason why we do that is because we're pro-family. Right. We really don't want, I mean, when couples have made the choice to dissolve their marriage, they've made that choice. It's very difficult, and you may have had couples that you've been able to reconcile. You know, we've had that as well. And we try to do that if we can, but the reason that we do mediation is so that they don't go to court. Like, that's the reason.
And so that if they choose to dissolve their marriage, at least we can help them dissolve it with dignity, you know, with civility.
And that's what our mediation business is all about.
Absolutely,
right? Yeah.
And to, you know, restructure the relationship so that they can still be parents together. And so that's, you know, the best way to go rather than an adversarial.
Right.
So as divorce mediators, what we did was we took the information that we were kind of learning along the way, and we used what we call root cause analysis to continue to ask questions to figure out where things went wrong for them. Because sometimes they just think it's for infidelity or emotional disconnect, but there's actually a root to the reason why they got to that point.
So take that a little bit further. What did you discover the roots were?
Well, we found roots were, which we put topics in the book according to money values and sexual values and
the trust and and
how they
family
handle
background.
tragedy.
You know, root cause analysis is a method that, unlike any other relationship book, where the nice thing about this book is that the uniqueness is that each chapter is written by us individually. So we have Don writes the same chapter, and I write the same chapter on the same topic. And so you're giving two perspectives. At the same time, the root cause analysis is asking the couple to develop a way to, you know, communicate and have a new language and to be curious about the relationship so that they can continue to grow, but find at the same time a deeper level in which they can connect.
You know, in a plain language way, it doesn't seem that there's any secret to, you know, having a relationship work well. It seems like it should be easier. What attracts us, we get caught on right away, and those beginnings seem to just work, right?
Yeah.
But as we go along, we uncover ourselves.
Absolutely.
So there's an uncovering that goes on.
That's right.
And you're changing in the relationship, right?
Otherwise it's not working. Yeah, you have to keep it going.
And the thing is also, and the reason why we called it conscious coupling is because we're trying to make people more aware of each other. They're more aware of themselves and more aware of their partner.
And how much do we operate in our subconscious?
Well, 95% of the time we operate from our subconscious.
Right, from early programming.
And our subconscious is
from... That's a little scary.
Yeah, it is.
It
is scary.
So,
but every single day we operate from that level.
Okay, so this book really brings out that awareness so that you are constantly checking in with your partner, right? You're checking in with yourself. You're checking in with, you know, where you want to go in the relationship. You know, to be able to, we're in what we call modern marriage now, or modern relationship, where you're entitled to ask for your wants and needs from your partner, where it used to be traditional, or companion, which maybe our parents had, but now the conversation is deeper. We require a deeper level in our relationships. But nobody has the tools to do that.
Funny,
Right,
it should
that's
have
the
been
problem.
normal from way back to
It should be.
cavemen, you know.
But
Yeah.
it's not, no, because they had traditional roles, and everyone set in their own roles. But now, because of the equality, it's like we require and we're entitled to have a more deeper relationship, more intimacy in our relationships.
Well, that
but we
help
don't have the
develop
tools.
intimacy.
But we don't have the tools
We don't
to
have
do
the tools.
that.
And the
This
thing
book
is
allows
this.
the tools.
And the thing also is, that we never. Where do we actually learn how to be in a relationship? Where do you actually learn
There's no
that?
school
There's
for
no
it.
school.
No,
Right.
and we only know from our parents, right? They're our first role
And our
models.
experience.
And our experiences with our own relationships. But the thing is like once we get on that treadmill of life, things just keep happening and we keep sliding into the next stage instead of consciously making choices to do things in a certain way. And I always use the horse story.
Okay.
Right? You drop the horse on the side of the road, you pick him up at the end of the day, what is he doing? He's still grazing. He's 3 miles down the road, but he's still grazing. That's kind of like how most of us operate.
How boring, but yes, I get it.
That's how we operate. So,
Right.
right? So we
Listen,
we go to high school, we go to college, we get out of college, we get a job, we get married, we
Well, there are
have
cultural
kids.
norms
and-
attached to all these things. We
Absolutely.
do those things all the time.
Yeah.
Have you ever asked that a couple wait before they decide to divorce?
Absolutely.
That used to catch up
Oh,
early on?
absolutely, absolutely.
Right.
And
I
It's
did
the
that
right
just
thing
last
to do.
week.
Did you?
This really hits my hot button.
yeah.
I said, "Are you sure?" One person didn't want a divorce. The other person wasn't sure, and I
Right.
think it's the perfect time to let this
Perfect.
delay this thing and see if
Great.
it would go on forever.
And you know what? I think in the long run, they trust you more too. I mean, if you're going to be honest with them, you're going to not rush them through the process. Because we always say, we're not going to allow any one of you to sign anything.
Because no matter how hard we try, we're still neutral thirds, but they don't believe it. They don't know
Right.
what a neutral third is.
That's right. And you know what's great about that, Chris, too? Is you gave the other person the opportunity to
Make a choice.
eventually
Make a
get to the
choice.
point where they are okay with it. Maybe they were at that point where,
Oh, that's a good point.
there's always one side that's ready
Yeah, that's a
and
good
one
point,
side
right.
that's not.
Well, that's because
but
the
you
one-
actually brought them to the point where now you have the chance of that second person
Right.
getting emotionally ready.
That's
Right,
right.
because the first person
I didn't
who
think
may
of that
have
at the time.
called for
I
the
should have
divorce-
thought about that, yeah.
Well, the first one's already grieved the loss of the relationship.
Right.
Right, which makes them ready for the divorce.
Right.
The other person hasn't grieved through the process.
They're going to have to catch up somehow.
Yeah.
You
have to
got to go
catch
through
up.
the 5 stages of grief. So, yeah, of course, they have to go through their own grieving.
Okay, you write that couples who think of themselves as opposites or that find incompatibilities in their relationship are often in the best position to repair their relationship.
Well, okay, so there's an interesting thing about compatibility because everybody's got their own ideas of what compatibility is, right? So when you have a computer application, compatibility means they have to fit exactly perfect. People can't be exactly perfect. They can't be a complete match. It just can't happen. But what it can do is if you can get somebody with the same core values, money values and sexual values.
Core values.
Core values.
Yeah.
If they have those core values, the other things can be different. So the activities that you like can be different. The way that you communicate could be a little bit different. As
Even the
long as
She
family
could
there's
like
could be
bowling, she could
different.
like tennis, that kind of
yeah,
thing.
as long as you have mutual respect,
Right.
and you could really, respect the other person's likes and dislikes and things like that. As long as you have those core values, then you'll make it work. You'll be
And
able
the
to make
only
it work.
thing, too, about compatibility is that you want to like who you are in the relationship. You ever notice that, like, in your relationship, you seem to be bitter, or you're disgruntled, or he's making you upset, or he's annoying you, and you feel like kind of getting a little irritated, and you become irritable. If you notice that about yourself, that you're not really happy, you don't really like who you are in the relationship, that's a problem.
Yeah, I can
Sure.
relate
Okay.
to what you're talking
Sure.
about now. Yeah.
Right.
I
So
think
you
about
want
it for
to
a
be
while, but yeah.
you want to be at your best with your partner. They
Yeah.
should be at their best when they're with you.
And the
That's
thing
You
is,
shouldn't be
yeah,
hiding a
compatibility.
negative emotion. I don't think that
Right.
works either. You
That's
got to get
right.
that negative emotion out.
No,
Or-
and this book also really encourages couples to talk it out at the time when they have something that they feel they can feel safe about talking, but they also should know that if they can't talk about a topic and it's taboo, then there's something maybe wrong with the relationship, that they're not able to feel safe enough to bring anything up. You got to be able to
Feel safe.
You got to be able to talk about everything.
You have to have trust. I mean, if you don't have trust in the relationship and you don't
And
trust your
can't talk about
partner, you can't
anything.
trust your partner to not tell her friends. You can't trust your partner to, just
Your partner
judge you.
should be like your best friend.
Yeah.
You know how you have that best friend
Always,
conversation that
people
you can
always
talk.
say that you should have that best friend in your relationship. It should be a
Absolutely.
really good friend.
And in my couples counseling, I ask couples, do you talk like best friends? And like, oh no, we're not friends. Well, that's a problem.
Yeah,
right? You need
absolutely.
to be friends.
And just to back up, you had mentioned something before. When you're negative inside, you can't be positive outside. And the one thing, we actually saw a study where when you walk around with a positive attitude, you actually infect everyone around you in a positive way. When you're negative, you're affecting everybody
Same
from a
thing,
negative
different
perspective.
Yeah.
And they
You could
actually
see
said
that.
that the negativity actually is stronger than the positive energy.
Yeah.
How strong?
So,
What do you mean? What's
well,
the value?
the percentage I think is 11% negativity and 7% positive. So you'll affect the person around you, like 7% of their energy will come from you if it's a
It's like it's
positive
easier
energy.
to bring somebody down than it is to bring somebody up. There's something about that negative energy that's even a hard.
It's more
a pull.
impactful. It's more impactful.
It's more impactful.
I think so.
It's,
We
just
as
affects
species
people
are
more.
designed to survive. So everything we do is about survival, right? So negativity is a defense mechanism, right? Which is part of the
It can be
survival.
used that way too.
Right. So
So the thing is like, and they did studies on this, that when you're positive and you send out that positive energy, you're affecting the immediate people around you at a 7% amount, and then beyond that, those people are transferring the positive energy at a lesser degree, but to the people around them.
Right.
I mean, you
So
think
put
it
that in your
when you
relationship.
hold the door open for somebody, what usually happens? They hold
feel
it for
good.
somebody else,
Right.
and then it just continues. So it's just
It's a strange game we play when we
strange
do that,
game. Yes.
But it has
Human
has some
condition.
effect. You describe blissful love in the book. What is blissful love to you?
Well, mature love, I think, it's a different. People
beyond
say that you
lust, right?
Right. That's
Lust
right.
fades, and then mature love grows, and that's beyond the hot and the heavy. Those first 6 months.
It's a longer term.
Well, some
longer-
people.
Yeah, well,
some people
trying to
say that
put some better
Some people
language in
say I fell in love, or I fell out of love.
It was an accident.
But
I wasn't doing. I was
right.
minding my own business.
It's like
and
there
I
was a
just fell.
cliff. All of a sudden, there was a cliff, and
Yeah.
they fell in.
Right.
But it's not like that. You basically have to grow your love,
Right.
or it dies. It's one or the other.
Right.
It's like if you're
That's
not
an
watering
important
it,
point.
it's
Yep.
dying.
Growing
Yeah.
in
You
love
have to
means
grow.
you have to
I
be
think-
open to change. You have to be able to be ready
Absolutely.
for it.
But some couples, they start to worry that they feel like they've lost that loving feeling. But that's only because that's that first feeling of lust. That fades. So don't be disappointed and you think the relationship's over, that you're not feeling those butterflies anymore. What's greater is that mature love. But people don't wait for
And
that
it's
to
more
happen.
longer lasting and less transient
It's so
too.
much,
When you
yes.
get when you
and
get
it's
going
much
with
more
it.
satisfying in the
Right.
long run because
It
you've got
is.
that companionship.
Well, you talk actually also about the sexual chemistry versus.
I was
right?
just going to ask that as the
Yeah.
next question. Go ahead.
Yeah.
The sexual chemistry, well, that's the brain chemistry that keeps us or gets
The
us attracted
hormones,
to each
right.
other because by nature we're designed to procreate. That's what we are as a species.
Thank God.
We're no different, but we're no different from anything else
Right.
that's a living,
So it's like
organism.
so the oxytocins, the dopamine, all of that
That's
stuff
all,
is
but
like
that
working in your
fades.
brain.
Testosterone, vasopressin,
Right.
all those other great
That's right.
hormones that we love
All-
to be
we
careful
love
of
it.
very
Yes,
well.
but they fade.
They do fade, and that's the thing, and that's the blissful, mature love, when you can get past that, the hormones, all right, because everybody goes through that phase initially. When you get past that point, that's when you
Okay,
actually get into
we
that
got to
mature
move
love.
on. There's a lot of things to talk about here.
Yeah.
Okay, what are some of the wrong reasons to marry? Let's get into the relationship part.
You
of
want
what
to talk
think
about the wrong reasons?
Well, we see a lot of that where it's like pressure from friends and family. Everybody's getting married. Now it's your turn. You got to get married, but it's not really the right time. One of the statistics for predictor of divorce is if you cohabitate and if you don't have an exact plan to marry, but you live together, there's more likelihood that you'll divorce because you're marrying that person without having an exit plan. So you just kind of go through the motions. So you got to be real careful about that.
I don't think of it like that, but yeah.
Being
so
dependent
nobody
on
does,
somebody for
right.
financial security, that's a bad way to go.
Yeah, you don't want to be dependent. I mean, as we've seen, you really don't want to be dependent on the other person financially.
In many other areas that would work too. You don't really want to be, independence is always a safer human condition.
Interdependent is
Within.
like you have the independence and you have the attachment to your partner, but you're of your own sense of self.
Right,
you know,
and that's the
autonomy.
codependent. A lot of people marry for codependency purposes.
Well, you know, I think many people marry because they want to settle down, but they're not settling. They're settling, and they're marrying a person to settle rather than wait till they meet the right person and then marry. So they're putting like the cart before the horse. They think they want to get married and have a child, and they grab the first one. And they say that 5 times in a person's life you have an urge to marry. It's not necessarily the right person. It's just that who we are as a species have a biological urge.
I knew someone who was like that. They insisted on being married. So
It
whoever
wasn't a
they went
married
out
who
with,
was.
and if you happened to fall in her path, you'd be married. I know it's just one of those things.
But the other thing too is compatibility. Like, you know, it kind of goes back to compatibility. You know, anybody that you pick, you're going to settle to some degree. Nobody's perfect,
That's right.
So as long as you have something good to work with, and you could grow together and you could work with each other.
Well, those are the
and
core
again,
values.
And that's the core values. If you could have that mutual respect, as long as you
If
can
you were to
grow
examine
together.
some of the people's core values in terms of why they would make the choice of the person that they would want to be with, you'd find them very odd. I mean, if you would know everything about someone's core values.
Well, yeah, you know, the interesting thing is too,
That's
we
a
find a lot of
discovery.
people have actually different money values. It's very interesting
Yeah.
that this core value that really is the most important thing, because most people get divorced because of money,
Right.
and they almost everybody has different core money values.
And it's okay to have different it's okay to have different money values, but you have to be able to talk about the money. You can talk about the difference. If one wants to spend, one wants to save. That may be something that, you know, they're never going to change, but they can be able to talk about it. I think couples don't talk about the money.
Also, in addition to that, you have to have a respect for the other person. So let's say, for instance, that I marry somebody who likes to spend, and I'm a person who likes to save. Well, that's going to be a source of conflict your entire marriage.
That's right.
The entire marriage. So you have to learn how to compromise.
And you find out a lot of sitting in a mediation session about, he never was able to save. Oh,
Exactly, and that comes back to the root cause analysis that we've been able to do and find out what the real core reason was.
But in the early stages of the relationship, I encourage couples to talk about the money. It's okay. You're not asking them what their finances are, or you're not asking them to see what their bank account is, but you want to know what their values are around money.
Yeah, so
Right.
what's one of those questions?
So one of the questions we'll ask, like, you know, if you had like found $5,000, just found money, right? All your bills are paid. What would you do with it? And it's very telling of what someone might do with it.
Those are games you play when you're sitting down or you're laying down in bed, nothing to do, the TV's on, you talk about stuff like that.
Right.
That's a lot of fun, actually.
I encourage,
sure.
it's important.
And it's surprising if you get
It
into
is
something
surprising.
very
The
surprising.
answers are surprising.
Yeah, but you know, you may want to write them down. Keep a note on that.
Okay, let's go to the marriage saving portion of this. Describe how you were able to save marriages that were heading to divorce. I mean, that's something, as mediators, we face this sometimes.
All the time. And I think what we're trying to do with the book is we're trying to get people when they're in a positive place. There's been, I don't know if you know John Gottman, but he's done studies showing people what the predictors of divorce are. The only issue is that he's doing it when people are in that negative place. Like it's easy to, I think it's easier to predict when somebody's in that negative place and they have negative communication.
Right, when
it's
there's
very
resentment,
easy.
criticism, defensiveness, and stonewalling.
The four horsemen,
Right.
yeah. So he basically is like, you can predict divorce very easily because they're already in that negative place. It's very difficult to predict it when they're in a positive place. So, and that's what we try to do. We try to get people when they're positive.
Because once that resentment and those hurts start to really corrode the relationship, it's very hard to get that love and affection back. All right? So if you're not talking about the things that are upsetting you and you're repressing or you're keeping them from, and you're not talking about it, the hurt starts to build, the resentment starts to build, the defensiveness starts to build. And at that point, the love starts to erode. And then it's really hard to get it back. So sometimes our couples still love each other, and we love to see that, and we kind of extract that a little bit about how they feel. And one sometimes comes to the mediation table where because they want to like teach their partner or their spouse a lesson. Like they mean it, right? This is the last time you're going to hurt me, and now I'm going to retaliate. And you know that that's not really what they want. They don't really want a divorce. They just want to teach that husband there is a lesson.
It's amazing when you get down to the third session or the fourth session of a mediation, and you're really done with the mediation. All of a sudden, you never see them again. It's happened a couple of times.
Oh,
to me.
yeah.
Right.
Oh,
So
definitely.
you wait a year, you call them back. Oh yeah, we're still
doing-
together.
Yeah.
They're still
Yep.
So
together.
now you don't know whether you had any part in that or not,
Yeah,
but it would be
of
nice to
course.
know from the beginning that they were
Yeah.
using me as a tool.
Right,
Yes.
right. Well,
Well,
one
which
of
is
one
what
of
you
them
were
was
talking
using
about.
one
Yeah.
of them was
Yeah,
using
right,
you as a
right,
tool.
right.
Yes, and the reality of that, you know, because sometimes I'll tell couples when they're on the brink, I'll say, you know what, pretend you're not married anymore. You're going to remove the marital expectation from your relationship. Now you're going to go back home and you're just going to live like roommates. And all of a sudden the tears start, and all the sadness, all that kind of, you know, love and affection comes back because they realize this might be real.
What they're going to be losing.
And,
Yeah.
that's a good point too, because one of the things that we tell people also is expectations need to be agreed upon and not assumed. Because I think so many times we get married with these expectations that are assumed.
Yeah.
Because when we get into the marriage, you say, well, you know, you're supposed to be acting like this now. You're
Yeah.
my husband or you're
Right.
my wife, and this is what you should be doing. But they never talked about it before they got married.
Well, they figure
So-
it's another human being. Why would they be like me?
Exactly. Exactly.
Right, I think that's a key point, though.
Yeah.
They go into the relationship with these expectations, like now you're the husband, you're supposed to be responsible, and you're supposed to now start.
Speaking
Or
of-
they have a baby. And they say, well, you know, now I'm the mother and I'm acting very mature now. Why aren't you acting mature?
Yeah, how come you still want to go out on
Right.
Friday and Saturday night? We have a
have
baby
a
We have
now.
a
baby
kid
now.
now, yeah.
So,
What about this bloodline and history? And, you know, what effect does that have, and what?
I think it's really important to know your partner's background. So families have themes, right?
I
They
know
grow-
exactly what you're talking
Okay,
about.
they
Yeah.
grow up with like learning how to keep secrets. They grow up, you know, maybe there's suicide in the family.
Hiding
maybe there's
money.
mental illness.
Cutoffs.
Right.
Hiding money.
Cutoffs.
Cutoffs.
Cutoffs. You know, you want to
Cutoffs?
pay.
Yeah,
Cutoffs.
like,
Like suddenly she's not
no more.
talking to her sister. She hasn't talked to her sister. You know,
Okay.
in 8 years. You know, or cousin. You know, Susie said something, and that's it. She's done. So if they have cutoffs in their family, they've learned that if things don't work out with that relationship, they'll have cutoffs too.
Especially in a divorce. They're more likely
To
cut off
alienate, and
and
they can
alienate
alienate.
the other person.
Right, because it's
Like
easy
they've
for
been,
them.
because they're familiar
Because
with
they
that.
know it in
familiar
their
with it.
family.
Right.
So, and also I think in terms of the bloodline and all that, it's important to see how your partner's father is dealing with the mother, or working or communicating with the mother. How is the mother communicating with the
Watch
father?
the family dynamic.
Yeah, and attached to this, the next question was something I added to. How would you advise a couple to discuss parenting styles when they are not yet parents themselves, but just removing the parenting styles? I call that the elephant in the room in my mediation, because so many different little ways.
Right.
Oh, they didn't do this.
Sure.
He's never home in time to take care of the kids. He doesn't pick
Yep.
up the kids from school, or he's such a good father, you know, and I wish I could be as good as him. Whatever.
Yes.
But they're all parenting styles. They all
Yes.
relate to the same type of thing, a different modality in their operating system.
Well, I think that, you know, you can watch and talk to your partner about like how he was
It's
raised.
a big problem.
That's a big thing.
What's
But,
that?
I think
but
that's
how were
huge,
you
though.
raised? You know,
Right.
how were
Oh,
you raised?
yes.
What are the values? What do you believe that, you know, parents did that were good? What did you think that your parents didn't do so well and you wouldn't bring into your own family?
Right.
And I also tell, you know, you can create your family.
And
you
you
don't have to follow the rules and what you came from, because I came from certain rules and values or traditions. He came from different rules. So together we create our own family with our own set of
I
rules.
use the same language in mediation too. You can create your own divorce.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
that's
I mean,
absolutely
theoretically,
right,
that's
yeah.
great.
Well, that's why we don't
It's
have to go-
power. You're
yeah.
empowering.
Right.
But talking about it beforehand, before the kids, is important, because again, like
Well, you
Donna
want to also
said
know how
before,
many kids each of you want, because sometimes
and
there's a little
but
bit of a
that
surprise.
could change. That could change afterwards too. When you start having them, you might want to have less.
You know, a lot of times you hear like one wants to send them to private school, the other one believes in public school.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
that
you
kind
know,
of thing
that's a
goes.
problem.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to try and run through the last few things in about
Okay.
10 minutes we have left. It's less than
Okay.
that, actually. How do you and your partner, how do you know if your partner is trustworthy? This has got to be an interesting one.
It
How
takes
do you-
time.
Yeah.
It's time.
That's it?
It
Well,
takes.
well, this is-
well,
yeah.
well, no, go ahead, Don. You
Well,
can-
the thing is this: it's like we found that when you're young, we don't have as many walls built up when you're young. As you get older, and because of the relationships we have, we build up this like brick wall that we have, and every time we see, maybe we'll see a character flaw in somebody, we say, "Oh, that's it. Like I can't deal with that." Like you'll immediately not be
Throw up the no sign.
Yeah,
Okay.
and you'll throw up a red flag, and you won't deal with it. So it takes more time to break down those walls
Okay.
after and be vulnerable.
and that's you because you're from Queens. But no,
I'm from
I
Queens
believe
too, watch it.
No, but I think that it takes time, and it's reliability, it's realistic expectations, it's watching behavior, right? It's not necessarily always that you come in distrusting, it's that over time, that partner is revealing who they are. So you can't, in the first couple of months, think that I can trust this person. It
Right.
takes time. And don't think that you're going to trust them, like, the levels of trust will grow too. They'll deepen. Right? You can trust them with some things, but not trust them with others until you know them.
And that's why I say breaking down the walls. Dana says revealing, but I call it breaking down the walls because everybody has these walls, and you'll become vulnerable over a period of time. So it also is revealing, but it's also breaking down the walls, and that's why you are revealing, because of those walls being broken down.
Okay, attached to the same thing, how do you effectively work with couples that are in conflict?
Okay.
You want to start with that?
Well, when they're in
Because
conflict,
they're often in conflict when we see them
yeah,
in
they
our
are.
business.
And you
Absolutely.
know what? We want them to. Well, first of all, it's important for them to at least develop a little compassion for each other, to be able to see where the other person is coming from. Maybe they just need a sincere apology for what's been happening, and maybe they need to be validated. Their feelings need to be valid. Sometimes we had that one couple who he had been hurting for a long time, never said anything, and then we gave him the space to talk about how upset he was about his marriage, and he was able to express it and voice it, and he felt a lot better. Remember that?
Yeah, well, the thing that ended up happening is that they walked in separately, separate cars, walked in at separate times. They ended up walking out together.
Right.
Because he was
all
able to get all this out.
Because all we did was we create a safe place and a safe space for them to be able to express whatever is hurting. And you know what? Sometimes we have to say to one, you know what? I think he just really needs an apology right now.
And I think
can you acknowledge his pain? And
Right.
so acknowledging where that other partner is with their hurts.
And I think a big thing too, a big component of the conflict too, is they don't trust their partner anymore, and they won't listen to them.
I mean, once that happens,
because they don't trust them.
The break, there's
The
been a
betrayal.
break.
So us
Betrayal.
being there together, we actually provide an environment for them where they can actually speak to us, and then the other person is actually listening with a different ear.
Right. Or sometimes we have a dialogue,
we have a
and we
dialogue,
talk
right.
more transparent, and
Right.
we talk about the couple while they're sitting there.
So they'll listen
So-
to what we're saying.
Right, without having the, I guess,
The
the
mistrust.
discomfort, and not only that, but the discomfort and the awkwardness
And
of
it's
talking
safer.
to each other.
Right.
I mean, you play out, am I getting this right? You
Yeah.
play out a dynamic within,
Exactly.
Right,
within
and we
yourself.
talk about them as though they're not in the room, but we're transparent about each other, what's going on there.
Or I'll say, "This is what I heard. Did you hear the same thing?"
Right, and that's
And we
sort of
just
break
play
down.
off each other. So then they're listening, and they're like, "Oh, is that what I sound
It's like an ongoing coaching thing, I guess.
ongoing coaching
Yeah.
Well, because our mediation also includes some of the therapeutic,
Components.
components.
Okay, last and not least, what is it? Your book is entitled Conscious Coupling.
Conscious coupling.
Conscious
Okay.
coupling.
And
not
what does it say
easy to
about
do.
positive insights?
Positive insights, because this is the thing. We didn't want it to look like a negative book that we're coming from divorce. What we're trying to do here is we're trying to give people the tools based on the knowledge that we gain from being divorce mediators. We have these tools and techniques that we've kind of created and we found, and they're positive insights so that people can have a longer lasting relationship.
So we're saving relationships one book at a time.
Great book. Sounds like a great idea, and of course I know all about this subject, or a lot of it, but you brought some new things to me. I'm now going to think about it. Thank you, Dana Greco and Don DeRoches. Societal and political trends are rapidly breaking down the family. Once was a cornerstone of our great American culture, and at FIT we know you cannot get this information on your own, so we'll bring it to your TV every single week. And of course we always invite any opposing views that might happen. My name is Chris DiMaggio. Thank you for watching FIT TV, and we'll see you again next week.